Hey, I'm Pat, and in this video we'll be going over dictionaries in Roblox Studio. So I'm just going to start off with a blank script. So in a few videos ago in my series, I don't know if you saw it or not, it doesn't matter if you did, but I made a video on tables, and in that video I went over tables, but the specific type of table I went over was an array. And basically an array is just a table, but all of its indexes are numbers, so it's in order with numbers that go up, and that's how you access the values inside the table, right? So just like to refresh, we'll make a quick table with some numbers, right? So this is a table. This 1 would be, its index would be 1, 5 would be 2, 10 would be 3, 65 would be 4, right? And we can loop through that and we can print it out, all kinds of stuff, right? But another way of defining a table, or an array, I guess we're gonna call it, is we can define it kind of like this. So what we're doing is we're giving it the index that we want to assign it, so we can manually assign the index values kind of like this, right? And we can get the index, which would be 1 in this case. We use the square brackets to get it, and then we set it equal to the value we want to give it. So we can do this for all the values, and this will actually be the same as the other table that we just defined, right? So now I'll make a loop to loop through both of these tables, or 2 loops, and it'll print out their index and their value, just to show you that they are both the same, right? What did I do? Oh, I can't spell. It's alright. Alright, so now once we run it, you'll see, I guess I should have labeled them, but you see 1, 2, 3, 4, that's that one, and then the next one is just the same, exact same order, it's the same, they're both arrays, right? So that's what an array is. It has numbers as the indexes, so you can see on the left here we have all the indexes, and then on the right we have their assigned values here, right? And that's what a array is, right? So now what a dictionary is it's basically like the same thing as an array, except for numbers. Instead of numbers as indexes, it uses strings. Alright, so we're gonna call this, instead of table 2, we're gonna call it dict, short for dictionary. Don't get it confused, right? So our first index, we're just gonna make like an example of like a dictionary for, say, like a gun system or something. Like you're storing all the information for a gun, which would be an example is what you could use a dictionary for. We're gonna go over some more examples, but in this one, the example would be, you know, you're storing like the stats for a gun, like its damage, its recoil, whatever. So we're gonna do damage, and we're just gonna do 15. Pretty terrible gun, but it's okay. Gonna make some more indexes here. Okay, I have like ammo capacity, range, all kinds of stuff, I guess, right? And its range can be like 100, right? So this would be an example of how you would use the dictionary, and that way, you know, you could easily access its damage by just doing dictionary, and then you get it by doing dictionary, and you can do damage like this. You know, you would index it with a string, or you could do dictionary dot damage, just the same, right? So one more thing is a dictionary can only be looped through with pairs, because iPairs loops through the table in order, and dictionaries don't necessarily have an assigned order, right? Because their indexes are strings, so they're not numbered in order or anything. And that also means that you cannot use them with the table library. So you can't use table.find or anything like that on it. However, using like table.find or things like that are really unnecessary if you're using something like a dictionary. As long as you're using it for the right use case, you don't really need table.find or other things like that. It's not really necessary, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you kind of like a better use case for this. Say like you want to store a bunch of debounces like on a server script. You want to have a debounce for like each player, but obviously you can't just have a normal debounce variable, because if you have a normal debounce variable, then that will be used by every player kind of mutually, and that way it won't work. But if you have a dictionary, you could store your players in that dictionary and you could give them a value for their debounce, and that way we could tell like if their debounce is true or not. So what we're gonna do is I'm actually just gonna get rid of that. I'm gonna use, for example, we're gonna just do like a quick click detector, and it's just gonna be an example, so we're not gonna do anything crazy here. But what we're gonna do is reference our click detector, and when it's clicked, we're gonna want to print hi or something, right? Or we can do something cooler. We can change its color, okay? From RGB, and we can use math.random. What am I doing wrong? And we'll just get a random RGB value like this. And now what we want to do is we want to have a dictionary that stores all of our players' debounces. So what we're going to do is we're going to initialize an empty table called debounces, and we're going to make it empty like this with our empty curly braces, right? Now what we'll do is we'll access our player parameter that we're getting from the mouse click event, because it passes us the player instance that clicked it, right? And we can access the debounces, and what we can do is we can straight index it with the player. Now you might think that because it's an instance, it's not really going to work because it uses strings as kind of like for a dictionary, but it's going to look for the player's name basically. So the name of the instance, it's going to use the name of the instance. Same way where if you try and print an instance, it'll just print the name of the instance, kind of same thing like that, right? And you can also set values of a dictionary that don't exist yet, like this. So like even though it's empty, we can still assign it a value at this index, which would be the player's name. So what we're going to do actually is we're going to check if the player is inside our debounce table. Well, we're going to check if they're not in it. So what this is doing is it's checking to see if there is a value stored at this index, and if there isn't, then it's going to run the code inside this if statement, right? We're just checking if there's a value here. So now what we'll do is we'll add our player to this if they're not stored in it, or actually we're going to initialize it to false. And now what we can do is we can check our player's debounce. Actually, this is gonna kind of like suck because this is a boolean, so this is always gonna... What am I doing? Wait. Bro, I didn't think this through fully, did I? Alright. So, if their debounce is false, then what we'll do... Alright, if their debounce is true, then... Alright, you know what? Fucking hell, man. Alright, we're just gonna do it like this. I'm just gonna not make it complicated. Alright, so we're gonna check to see if their debounce is false. This will check to see if it's false or if there's nothing there. And if there's nothing there, then it will automatically assign the player a value inside of our debounce table with this line. So it doesn't matter if nothing's there, it's not a big deal. right? And then what we'll do is we'll have a task wait, which will yield our script and wait like a second, which will prevent our player from triggering it again. And actually what we want to do is set it to true here, and then we'll set it to false here. So basically once it's set to true here and they click it again, once it checks their value here, it'll see that it's true and it'll skip over the if statement. But after 1 second, it'll set it back to false, allowing them to trigger it again. And this will be unique for each player because each player will have their own debounce inside of our debounce table, which is being referenced inside our if statement and being checked here. And its value is also being assigned on these two different lines, right? So that should make sense. We'll see our example in just a second here. So we're just going to test it to show you that it works. You see we click it and you can hear, you should probably hear, but see I'm spam clicking and it's only changing every hour second. And I don't really have another person to really test this with, just to do like a scripting tutorial. I'm not going to get like a whole nother person here to test it with me, but you're just going to have to take my word for it. It works for multiple players. Each of them have their own separate cooldown, which is good for things like if you're doing a something like a chat command script, like a player is like doing a chat command and you want to get them their own cooldown on that chat command so they don't spam it, but everybody else can still use their command. That would be a good use case for something like this, right? So that is how a dictionary works. I guess I didn't show you how to loop through a dictionary. I'll just show you kind of real quick. Also, another way that you can create indexes for a dictionary is you don't actually need the square brackets and the quotes for a string. You can just put its name here without quotes or square brackets, and it'll recognize that this is a dictionary and that this index will still be a string, even though you didn't, necessarily define it as a string. And you can either use commas or semicolons for separating your values in this. You can also kind of define it just like you would in an array, like with a normal table. Like you can define it like this, but honestly that's much more messy, right? You don't want to do it like that. It's kind of ugly. It's a lot easier to make it this way because it's a lot more readable, right? And now what we'll do is we'll make a for loop, if I can spell. I probably should have named it something else, but this is just an example. I don't actually care that much. We got other things to do in this video. So now once we run it, you'll see it prints out all the values, but you'll notice that they're not all in order actually. This is because pairs does not print out values in order, right? Because we defined damage, range, and then ammo capacity, but in here it did ammo capacity, range, and then damage, which doesn't even make sense because that's not even in alphabetical order. It's not in any particular order because dictionaries don't actually have a set order. So pairs, you can use it on arrays also, but the downside with arrays is that it won't be printing the array in order, and it'll also loop through the array slower. And you can't use pairs or I pairs on dictionaries because dictionaries don't have an order, right? So you want to use I pairs on arrays because it's more efficient, but you can't use it on dictionaries, so you have to use pairs for dictionaries, even though it's kind of less efficient, but it doesn't matter too much, right? You don't really have another option. But that's how you would loop through it. That's kind of how that works. So the last thing I'm going to ask you to do now is I'm going to show you kind of like the script I want you to write, and you're going to pretty much write it on your own, hopefully. I encourage you to try and challenge yourself and make it on your own. This one is kind of a little bit different. It's a little difficult, but I'm sure you can power through and figure it out. If not, it's okay, but I encourage you to give it a try. So what I have here is a part with a click detector in it. and each time I click it, you'll see I get XP. You know, it's not like live or anything, but you'll see I have it set to print out each time that I level up. So if I click it a few more times, you'll see I level up, and with each level up, you can see my max experience increases a bit, and my base XP is set back to 0, as well as my level is increased, right? So now I'm level 3, and the XP I need to level up again would be 110, and my XP is set back to 0. Now you could have it set so the XP carries over in case of, you know, like the current XP they had was more than the max XP. You could have it, the excess carry over to the current XP value instead of setting it straight back to 0. You can kind of do it however you want. It's completely up to you how you want to handle this, but this is just kind of like your example here, and I'll show you how I wrote this. But you know, you can kind of deviate if you want. You can add your own things, you know, do whatever. Obviously we don't really have a way. I haven't went over like GUI or anything yet, so like it's kind of hard for me to give you like a visual or anything, because I'm not really gonna try and go over that in this video. But you know, you click the part, it gives you a bunch of XP, and you level up. And all of your stats are stored in the dictionary, obviously, and it'll should all be managed inside of one script, which will make it a lot easier to do. Otherwise, you need to use bindables and stuff, which I haven't gone over, so good luck. But I encourage you to try that, because, and pause the video here and try that, because right now I'm gonna spoil it and give you the solution. So here's my solution, right? Well, that's my script, but you see I actually have the XP giver here, but I don't have a script inside of it. I just have the click detector, right? And inside my server script service, I have a server script with a bunch of code in it, obviously, right? So we're getting the player service because we're gonna need it, and then we have a template, and what this template is doing is kind of predefining how we want our dictionary to look. So we want to have our players level in it, and we want them to have XP and a max XP, and we give it some default values. And now we have another dictionary which is going to store all of our players level data. I called it profiles just because I didn't really have a better name for it, and you know, that's what it would be used if I'm using profile service, but obviously I'm not going over that in this video. It's kind of advanced for a beginner series. But next we have a player added function, and basically what this is doing is whenever a player joins, is it adds them to our profiles table, and it sets their value in the profiles table to the template, and then once they're removed, it removes them from the dictionary, so that way we don't have extra players in there. We're not wasting memory or data, right? And then all we do is we get our XP giver part, and we access the click detector, and we reference the mouse click event, and then we get the player that clicked it, so that we know which player to change, which player to use. And then we get their profile from the profiles using, you know, just indexing it by player. And then all we do is we do profile the XP to access the XP, right? And then we increase it by a random number. You obviously can do it kind of however you wanted to. I just decided to make it kind of a random number. And then we check to see if their XP is greater than the current max XP, which is important because that's how we detect if they're leveling up or not. So every time it changes, we then check after to see if their XP is exceeding the max XP, which lets us know if they should level up or not. Then we increase their level, set their XP back to 0, and then we increase their max XP by our multiplier. What I'm using here is math.floor, which basically cuts off the decimal point, so it keeps their number always being a whole number. So we're multiplying it by 1.05 each time, which is basically a 5% increase on the max XP each time. It's not too important. I mean, you could have just, you know, added on 10 here or something. It doesn't necessarily matter too much how you did it, as long as you get the idea of using the dictionary and changing the data inside of it. And then I have a print here for whenever they level up, it'll print out their data so we can see the updated data, right? Hopefully that all makes sense. What I'm gonna do here actually now is I'm gonna print out, I'll print out the profile whenever we click it here. so that way you have a more of a visual. I want to print out profiles, and what printing out the profiles will do is show me the whole dictionary with all the players in it. Just kind of give you a visual of what it looks like. Oh, okay. Alright, so I was wrong. I thought it was going to use a string here, but what it's doing is actually referencing the instance. So this is, I think this is the memory address of the instance. So it's storing it in the, it's just using the memory address. But you could just do player.name as well if you really wanted to. Which will be a lot more cleaner when you're trying to print debug, honestly. But I don't know why I didn't know this, but alright, it's okay. So you can see we go to our player index. This, you could just imagine this being my username. And then inside of it we have another dictionary, and this has all of our level information, right? So we could close this and you can see that this is just one dictionary on its own, and then its value is another dictionary because we set it to store in our dictionary, right? That just gives you a better visual on what exactly is going on there, right? So that's it for this video. Hopefully I helped you understand dictionaries a little bit better, what they're good for you being used for. Hopefully. I think dictionaries are extremely powerful, definitely very useful for keeping your clean code. Data management, very useful, very powerful. Definitely something you should try to learn and understand. If this video didn't help you, I highly encourage you go find another video or look for topics on the dev forum or API reference to figure out how it works better. But that's it for my video, so I'll see you guys in the next one or whatever. Bye.